In this video, we are going to take a look at how you can use the HAPI FHIR client library to interact with a FHIR REST API. Now, the generic client or the Fluent client is heavily inspired by the .NET version of the FHIR library. That's actually by the FHIRly team. But we'll take a look at how you can use this in your code. Now, previously, we have used the HAPI FHIR library to create a patient. Now we'll see how we can post this patient to a FHIR server. Okay. So now the first thing to do is actually we need a FHIR server, but I already have one running on the FHIR bootcamp.medblocks.com. This is the same thing that all of our bootcamp students use, and they usually play around with this. So we can actually use this same FHIR server. I'm just going to copy the base URL, and then I'm going to say string base URL equals this particular server. Okay. Now let's see how we can use this with the Fluent client of HAPI FHIR. Okay. Now there is a good tutorial here on how you can actually set things up and how you can do the different operations: search, create, read. What we are going to do first is obviously we are going to try and create a patient resource. Now they have created a patient resource, and all they need to do is say client.create resource and then pretty print encode JSON and then execute. Yeah. So this will, let's try to do this and see how this works. Yeah. So before that, we need to actually create a client object. So we'll do this. So let's say I generic client equals, and we actually need to do this after the context is defined. So let's say ctx dot new RESTful client server, and then we pass in the base URL here. Okay. Now, once that's done, let's actually go ahead and post this. So we don't want this anymore. Let's actually try to post this patient to the FHIR server. So let's do client.create. And we have the resource here, .resource. And this could either be a string like, just patient, or we can pass in the patient class actually. So because there is an overloading here on this method, so we can also say patient.class. That will also be fine. And let's see what we can do here. So we do create, let's check that. So we do .create resource patient. Oh, okay. So this is not the class of the patient. This is the patient itself. Okay. So we are creating the resource, and then we can actually create the patient itself directly. Perfect. And then let's just set pretty print. So request pretty printed response via the pretty parameter dot encode JSON. So let's see what that does. Request that the server respond with JSON via the accept header. Okay, perfect. That's fine. And finally execute. These are the default options anyway, but then it's good to explicitly mention them, I guess. Now, once you execute, what we are going to get back is a method outcome. Okay. So method outcome, and then let's actually log the outcome. Now the outcome is also a FHIR resource, just like anything else that we've dealt with. So what we can actually do is we can use the ctx.json parser .encode the outcome and see what that looks like. Oh, okay. Encode a resource using the parameters. Okay, I guess this outcome is not exactly a resource. So let's just console.log this outcome and see what happens. Now again, before we get with all of this, is obviously going to give us an error because we don't have all the dependencies installed. So this is going to say like the HAPI FHIR client does not appear to be on the class path. Yeah. So if that happens, all you need to do is just like make sure you copy the same version of HAPI FHIR structures that you're on, and just add the HAPI FHIR client and use the same version. Okay. Now once that's done, let's try this out. And also you can get rid of the SL4J error by just including any SL4J, SLF4J implementations in your dependency. And we see that we got a method outcome. Now let's see what the method outcome really comes with. Yeah. So I think let's get operation outcome. Oh, okay. So the operation outcome is a FHIR resource, right? Like, so this is I base operation outcome. So let's say we do, okay, let's see what this is. The resource returns client null, if null will return null. Okay, get resource. Now this will represent a proper resource, and in fact we can do our parsing on this. So let's say we do the same thing, right? Like ctx dot new JSON parser dot encode this, and we can actually do outcome dot get resource. This will work. Okay, now let's see if our patient gets created. And yes, we see that our patient got created. There is a patient ID in here. In fact, let's go back to our FHIR server here and see if that works. Patient slash ID, and perfect. We have a patient created with exactly these credentials. Okay. Now, let's also take a look at how you can get, and update this patient. So for you to get this patient, again, it's going to be really simple. All you need to do is just do client dot read, and you know the patient already, right? So let's just say construct a read for the given resource, example patient. Okay, and here it just needs to take the resource type. So let's say the resource type again is patient, and then we can do with ID, and the ID can be a string, I believe. Yeah. So this will basically get this patient back to us and give it as a, let's see what this returns. So it gives us iRead executable. So we still need to execute this. Again, the JSON and the pretty print, all of those are the default options. So once we do execute, then it returns I base resource. Okay. So let's just see what that looks like. So this will be patient red. Okay, there's an error. Cannot convert from I base resource to patient. All right. So one option to deal with this could be we could cast this explicitly. So let's see how we deal with that. So I think they are going with this option of just saying .resource and then using the patient.class, and that automatically sets the return type as a patient. So I think we did it with a string. So actually let's use the class instead. And we don't have an error anymore. Okay, so the patient red is right here. So now let's, you can actually take this and put this into a variable because we've been using this quite a bit. So let's say the JSON parser. And let's see what type this is. iParser. Sorry, iParser, JSON parser is this. Perfect. Now we don't need to use this all the time. You can just say parser. I think I named it JSON parser. JSON parser.encode resource. And in this case, let's just get back the patient red. And we don't need this anymore. I'm going to, yeah. So this is just getting a patient with this particular ID. This is the same operation as just getting the patient, but then we are converting it into a Java object, and we are then converting it and then reading it. Yeah. So let's execute this. And we see that we are getting this patient and we get this ID as well. Okay. So now I'll tell you how you can just quickly fix this bug. You can just include the SL4J simple provider, and I'll show you, these are all alpha versions. Just get one of the latest. Just include this in your dependency. Okay. And we don't need to include the scope as test. Let's include that. Now this will just get rid of this annoying warning that we've been getting. So let's run this again. And you see that it's actually able to log things out. It's informing you that all of these things are happening, right? So again, there is different kinds of log formats that you can configure. This is just a really simple one. Great. So now we got this. So let's see how you can update this patient. Okay, let's say we want to change the family name to Ramesh 2, for example, right? Now this is a new patient, but then let's actually update on the same patient. So Let's see how we can do that. I think it's going to be very similar, but let's see. Client dot update, and then we say resource, and we are going to get the whole resource body. The resource is just going to be patient in this case. We can either do with ID, and then we can pass in our ID here, or we could also include the ID as part of the patient. In fact, we'll do it in both places. Patient dot set ID, then we set this ID. Okay. And let's again check the documentation on update once again. Like, let's see, we have this patient.set ID, and then you actually don't need to do this twice. You can just, it will automatically infer that this is the ID. So you don't need to do that. And we just do an execute, and let's see what that returns. That returns a method outcome. And in this case, we actually know this. I'm not going to log it. Let's just see if it's able to do this. I'm just going to print out the outcome itself. Outcome dot, let's say, get ID. All right, let's run this. Excellent. So we got our, it's version 2 of the same resource. Let's go back and refresh this page. And you see that it's been updated and the version ID is 2 as well. Now, finally, let's clean this resource up and let's just delete it. So let's see how we can do that. So that's again, client.delete. I think it's going to be with ID. Again, I'm just reading the docs with you and then trying this out. So let's see, client.delete resource by ID. Okay, that's a quite a different one. So let's see. So that is resource by ID. And then you can actually just pass the ID type, or you can have the resource type as a string and then the logical ID again as a string. And that seems to be, again, they are doing a new ID type and then patient and this number, but we can also do just patient, comma, this logical ID. And let's see if that works. So I think this also returns, we need to execute this. This should return an operation outcome as well. Okay, method outcome. Let's set this up for this. Let's get rid of this. Yeah, perfect. So now we have method outcome, client delete, and let's just get the ID of this after it's executing. Let's run this. And we get, again, the same exact ID because I think nothing is changing. But if we go back and check, this resource was deleted, right? So it was successfully deleted. And yeah, I mean, we played around with posting, getting, updating, and deleting. So if you want to also do a search, that's actually pretty simple as well. So let's just list all the patients that we have. Yeah, I think it's going to be very simple. In this case, just do client.search, and you can say for resource and just say patient.class, right? And the outcome is again going to be, let's execute this. I think the return type is going to be an I-based bundle. So we can actually parse this bundle using the parser. JSON parser.encode the bundle. Okay. Now again, the bundle is, it will return the whole search set. Let's see what this looks like. We can also like pretty print using the JSON parser, I think. Set pretty print to true, just so that we get multiple lines. Let's run this. And there we go. We have a pretty printed version of all of the patients on our server. Okay. So that's about it. I think we took a look at how you can create a patient, how you can update the patient, how you can get back the patient, deleting, as well as searching all the patients on the FHIR server. Now, again, if you want to learn more, you can just check out the documentation. We'll also leave a link to the GitHub repo of this starter project down below. And if you are interested in FHIR in general and just want to learn more and want to upskill yourself and want to become an expert one day, join our webinar. We conduct this every month, and we have hundreds of people like you who are interested in health IT joining, asking live questions, and it's quite good. It's completely free. I will leave a link to that below as well. If you're interested, just join us, and hoping to see you there. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.